So I'm going to talk to you tonight about one of my favorite things to talk about. It's been one of my favorite things to talk about my whole life, and that's sharks. Slide. So I'm not going to try to convince you tonight that sharks are exactly like us, slide, but they are in fact more similar to us than many of us would probably think. Slide, please. If you look at the inside of a shark, you would recognize a lot of what you're looking at. For more on this, I encourage any of the nerds in the audience to read Your Inner Fish, an excellent book that's now also a PBS documentary that's just as of last week on Netflix. You can learn more about this, how on the inside we're pretty similar to fish like sharks. But I'm going to talk to you tonight about how you can learn a lot more than that from sharks. You will recognize a lot of behaviors if you're used to interacting with people. And since this is an audience of self-described nerds, maybe many of you are not used to interacting with people. But I hope I can teach you something tonight about shark ecology, about shark behavior, about shark conservation. Slide. So as we heard from Virginia, confidence is very important in everything you do. You can also learn a lot from how humans talk about sharks, and one of my favorite mediums of communication is internet memes. And this is a great one. This is a thresher shark. They just naturally look like this, kind of derpy. But they're incredibly powerful predators. They use their tails to whip almost faster than you can hear a whip cracking noise, like an Indiana Jones noise, and it makes enough force to stun predators. There is also the opposite of this, even though pretty similar to what this meme is implying, is something called a shy shark. They're called that because when they're startled, they curl up in a ball and cover their face with their tail. Don't be a shy shark, be a thresher shark. Slide. So, another important life lesson here. Unfortunately, this is a gift, so it's going to keep looping behind me. But an important lesson here is that sometimes the bad things that happen in your life happen because of poor choices that you've made, avoidable choices that you've made. And a corollary to this is sometimes the person responsible is not the one who gets blamed. The media coverage of this incident did not say, fucking idiot picks up a shark and holds it next to his face and gets bitten. It said, monstrous shark attacks this innocent scuba diver for no reason. That, as you can see here, that is not what's happening. Those of you who are Florida scuba divers or snorkelers recognize this as a nurse shark. They're sort of famous for being docile, for being tame, for being harmless. And that's true. I'm pretty sure in the entire history of human civilization there have been 0 documented incidents of a nurse shark, unprovoked, messing with someone. But lots of scuba divers and snorkelers hear that, and they decide to fuck with nurse sharks, and then they get bitten. So don't do this. Slide. People think of sharks as being the top of the food chain, the biggest, baddest predator around. And for many food webs, that's true, but just because you're the biggest badass on your block doesn't mean you're not going to have to go to another block sometimes where they're the bigger badass. So sharks are frequently prey. This was taken right here in South Florida. That's a baby bonnethead, a relative of the hammerhead shark. The biggest sharks around, the thresher shark that I talked about earlier, and also great whites, get eaten by orca whales. So there's always a bigger, badder predator. So don't watch your back. Slide. And related to that, it's always good advice. Be nice on your way up the corporate ladder or the social ladder, because you might meet people again on your way down. So you don't want people angry at you on your way down. Many of you are familiar with this sort of image of a great white shark hunting a seal. Many of you may be less familiar that seals do the same thing to other species of sharks. Actually, I think the seals are much less humane about it. The great white will eat a whole seal. The seals will rip out the gills and the viscera of the shark and leave the rest of it there. There are YouTube videos of this. They are worth your time. Next slide, please. It's a scary world out there with lots of challenges, and sometimes you need help, and that's okay. It's important to reach out to your friends and to have friends you can reach out to. These are scalloped hammerhead sharks. Every year or so, they will school. Normally, sharks are considered pretty solitary animals, but when a predator or a threat is nearby, the biggest ones will be on the outside of the school, And the pregnant females and the babies will go on the inside of the school and be the most protected. So it's okay to reach out to your friends every now and then. Slide. But it's also important that you need to stand up for yourself. This is a lemon shark being born. The second it's born, the first thing it needs to do is get away from its mother so she won't eat it. And the next thing it needs to do is figure out how to eat on its own. So my mother is actually in the audience tonight, came over from Naples. Raise your hand, Mom. So, I give her a hard time a lot, but Mom, I'd like to publicly thank you for not abandoning me the second I was born to find food on my own. But it's still important that you need to be able to take care of shit on your own sometimes. Slide. So, many of you are familiar with this kind of shark. This is a great white shark. Almost everyone knows what this is. And they get a lot of publicity, they get a lot of research funding, they get a lot, more than half of the specials on this past year's Shark Week were entirely focused on great white sharks. And great white sharks are awesome. They should get some attention, but they're not the only game in town, so check your great white privilege, you guys. There's a lot. Slide. There are actually more than 500 species of sharks. As of August 1st, when I checked for the Cosi Shark Trivia event that some of you guys attended, there are 512 recognized species of sharks. And some of them are fucking weird. That's the thresher in the upper left. You can see its giant tail sometimes can be as long as the whole rest of the body. There are sharks that live in the deepest part of the ocean. There are sharks that live under Arctic ice. There are sharks that live up rivers. There are sharks that live anywhere. Anywhere there's water, there's probably a shark. There are sharks that are every shape, size, color you can imagine. There are sharks that are bubblegum pink in color. There are sharks that glow in the dark. So there's a huge diversity of sharks, and variety is the spice of life, and you embrace it. Slide. This is another one of my favorite shark memes. Incidentally, this brings up a side lesson. Do not grab sharks. I can't believe I have to say this. Look but don't touch. If you see a shark in the wild, do not attempt to grab it, do not attempt to ride it, do not attempt to wrestle it. Oh my God. But there's a lesson here. Sometimes when you're out trying to enjoy a nice day of looking at the water, a giant great white shark will jump up at you and stop and smell the roses, take advantage of unexpected opportunities. Slide. This is another great life lesson. Many of you have seen on Shark Week that amazing footage of great white sharks leaping out of the water to hunt seals. That's awesome, but it takes a ton of energy. Our lab's work has found that works about half the time, and if it worked much less than that, the great white sharks would starve to death because it takes so much energy to do it. But you don't always have to work harder. Sometimes you can work smarter. This is an angel shark. They can sit on the bottom, totally flat, buried under sand, for days until prey comes around right close enough to their mouth that they can just explode their mouth open and eat the prey. You'll notice that its pectoral fins don't even move. So don't work harder, work smarter. Slide. This is great wise words from old Ben Kenobi here. A great many things in life depend on your point of view. And this is true in a lot of things, but it's particularly true when dealing with ridiculously biased fear-mongering media coverage of sharks. These are the upper left and the lower right are some headlines I personally adjusted. In the upper left, you see here, shark steals catch from woman's fishing rod. I adjusted that to fish-eating animal eats a fish. That is not particularly newsworthy. The lower right here, fisherman spots great white shark off Jupiter coast. If you watch this video, they explicitly say the phrase, "Are your children safe?" I changed that to sharks seen swimming in the ocean, where sharks live. So this stuff is actually very important. Media coverage affects public perception. Public perception affects willingness to conserve. And 24% of all sharks, skates, and rays are listed as threatened with extinction by the IUCN Red List. And when I give public talks all over the country, and when I say that, there's always some jackass who says, "What can we do to make 100% of them threatened?" And that's because of fear-mongering media coverage. People are terrified. There are people that believe that if you dip your toe in a bathtub, that a great white sharks are going to fly out of the sink and eat your whole family. That's only a slight exaggeration of the fear that some people have of these animals. And yes, it is absolutely true that they're wild predators that sometimes can hurt people. They're not innocent puppy dogs, but the fear is greatly exaggerated. And in fact, a new statistic just came out that's one of my favorites, that in the year 2014, 8 people in the whole world were killed by sharks, 12 were killed by selfies. So speaking of which, I need everyone to smile for a second.
14 were killed in Biscayne Bay by boaters last year.
Yep. So that's more dangerous than interacting with a shark. Slide, please. Related to media coverage comes a particular bugaboo of mine, is that unlike some of the very important ecological issues that Tom talked about first, everyone knows what a shark is. And everyone thinks that they know things about sharks, and everyone thinks they're an expert. This is a problem, because not everyone is an expert. And there is an unbelievable amount of blatantly, demonstrably false information in mainstream media coverage about sharks. If you guys, this is one of my favorite quotes by Abraham Lincoln here that some of you have seen. The problem with quotes on the internet is you can't always be sure of their authenticity. If you see a media article referencing sharks and it quotes a shark expert and not a university or government shark researcher or not a environmental nonprofit professional advocate, you should be skeptical of the veracity of that claim. And years of doing this has made me wonder what media coverage in topics that I'm not an expert in is completely ridiculously wrong, and that keeps me up at night. Next slide, please. Related to everyone thinks they're an expert is the internet has made it easier than ever before for people to start their own environmental advocacy campaigns, for better or for worse, mostly for worse. If you want to hear more about this rant of mine on my blog, Southern Fried Science, look up how to make a completely useless online environmental petition in 5 easy steps. If I see one more petition calling for the government to ban shark finning in the state of Florida, I'm going to scream, because we did that in 1993. That is good that we did that. It is bad that there are people that don't know that we did that make people who want to help and have limited time to help waste their limited time in signing petitions that cannot possibly do anything at all because their goal has already been accomplished. There is literally no possible upside to these petitions. Similar to this, the internet and social media has given rise to a new generation of environmental extremists. This young lady here this was in the London financial district. She was protesting global overfishing by suspending herself by hooks embedded in her shoulder for several hours in front of the British equivalent of the stock exchange, the London Stock Exchange there. So, quick show of hands. How many of you see someone doing this and your reaction is, holy shit, that's a crazy person, I want to get away from them? Most of you. How many of you see someone doing that and your reaction is, global overfishing is a problem, I will adjust my behavior accordingly? I see 3 hands. Okay, so I will suggest to you that wanting to help is wonderful, but is not the same thing as actually helping. Slide. In this crazy mixed up world of ours, it's very important that you embrace what makes you you. If you have people in your life that say, no David, you shouldn't wear a left shark costume to a bar on a Friday night, you don't need that kind of negativity in your life. Get rid of those people. Slide. And while you're being yourself, find other people that are just like you. This is our lab social a few weeks ago. About half of these people are in the audience tonight. Thanks for coming, guys. If you look closely, you'll see that lots of people are wearing other shark clothes in this photograph. And in fact, I'm not even the only one wearing an entire full-body shark costume. So these are my people. Slide. And I want to close you with a happy thought here. Do what you love and love what you do. This is 6-year-old me. I've been interested in this. I've been interested in sharks. My parents might say obsessed with sharks since long before I was 6 years old. And slide. And I now get to do what I dreamed about doing when I was a little kid. Just about every weekend that I went to here at the University of Miami. I am living my dream. You guys can too. Work hard. Be yourself. Follow these goals and Virginia's goals too for some of this. And yeah, thank you. Last slide.